BetterMan family, welcome back to the BetterMan podcast. We're going to talk about faith, purpose, and the grind of becoming the man that God wants you to be. Tonight, I'm sitting down with Mark Delaney. Mark is a purpose coach, a speaker, and the author of the book In the Game, a playbook for overcoming setbacks, rebuilding confidence, and living with purpose. This book is not fluff. It is a practical punch you in the chest guide for men who feel stuck, sidelined, or like life has hit pause. Mark's message is clear. You're not done. You're not broken.
Mm,
You're just not in the game yet.
mm.
So let's talk about what it takes to suit up, stand up, and get back in the game. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I'm always excited to talk to any man about living our life, getting in the game.
Yeah.
One of the things for fun, I like to do disc golf, pickleball. I love meaningful conversations. Just Monday, I met with the Denny's dudes, which is dudes who eat breakfast at Denny's.
Oh my goodness. I thought you said Diddy's dudes. I'm like, hold on, bro. We
No,
Denny's.
Denny's
Yeah.
pancakes and bacon and eggs.
Come
And
on.
some of the guys playing disc golf, we were talking a while back, and I jokingly said, it was around the Super Bowl. I jokingly said, "Hey, I got an extra ticket to the Super Bowl. Anybody want to come with me?" It was just a joke, but I said it seriously.
Come on.
And one of the guys said, "I wouldn't want to go." Another guy said, "I wouldn't either." And then I said, "You know what, guys? Me neither." Because I'm at a time in life I refuse to be a spectator.
Yeah.
I would rather be playing my game with my friends than travel across the country and watch any other man play his game.
Wow.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'll support men in their
Yeah.
game, but my role in life, I'm done being a spectator.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in the game participating in the important things in life. And so I love to be around men anywhere I can,
Yeah.
talking about the bigger things in life, doing something with our life to make a difference in this world.
Come on, man. So let me ask you this, Mark. Where did the book come from? And was there some sort of personal moment where you realized you were not in the game?
Yeah, two great questions. The book came out of our life. The book, it's me and 36 of my friends who put this book together. Now, I
Yeah.
put together the content of the first like 13 chapters, but then I asked every one of these men to answer the same five questions about life. Have you ever felt like you were on the sidelines
Yeah.
where you're just like, man, life is happening out there, but it's not happening in here? And then how did you get back into the game? How
Yeah.
did you find teammates? I asked the same five questions and every man answered. So you get to hear stories in this book from myself and 36 other real men talking about our real lives.
Yeah.
And this just came out of the relationship of our lives of us as men saying, how can we help? How can we make a difference in this world? And so that's where the book came from. And then for me, myself personally, yeah, I was a man that 7 years ago felt like I was on a descent.
Hmm.
I was living for comfort, security, a little bit of reputation. The things I was living for, I was more so dying for.
Nah, come on.
And I just I was certainly on the sidelines and life was maybe somewhere out there something's happening, but in here I'm just dying as a man.
Mm.
And I'll tell you just a real quick snippet of something after 2 years of wrestling. Now, mind you, I was a teacher at a Christian school. I wasn't a bad man. I was just a dying man. My my heart was in the right place, but my heart was just captured inside of a prison cell.
Mm.
So it didn't matter what my motives were. I was trapped as a man.
Yeah.
And after 2 years of wrestling with my life, I was reading a book, which I don't read a lot, to be honest with you. I was at the gym on the treadmill, walking about 2.0 miles an hour, reading a book. And I cracked open the book, and the first line, it said, "Stop living as if the goal of life is to arrive at death safely."
Oh man.
And I read it again, And I handed it to my wife who was next to me, and I said, I'm leaving the school. And I guess I was about 47 years old. I left. I had two occupations. If you're a teacher, you always have two occupations.
Right.
And I was a teacher and I was a sports official. And I assigned umpires for baseball. And I walked away from both of them. And so that was the beginning of my change of getting off the sidelines and getting into the game.
Wow. So a lot of men, me included, we tend to stay silent when it comes to our setbacks. Why do you think it's hard for guys to admit when they're struggling? Like I
Oh,
know just based on what you just said, man, it's probably hard to say, man, I'm struggling. Like
yeah.
I'm not living with purpose. Why do you think that's the case?
Yeah. I did it for so many years. I think that as a man, sometimes the only thing you have to hold on to is at least what people think of you.
Mm,
I think a lot of men, we have a heart to be Superman, but we feel like the Joker, and we don't know what to do with that.
yeah,
We feel like our life is nothing but kryptonite, and it's hard to find the cape. But I think the trap that we fall into is at least if people around me think I'm a good man,
yeah,
I at least have that. Well, if I then tell you my struggles, well, now that's even gone. Because as a man, I'll tell you
right.
this about me. Myself as a man, I didn't like myself. It didn't matter the good I was trying to do in this world. I
Mm,
didn't think much of me. And I was afraid that if I told a man about my struggles, now they won't think much of me either. Where do you go with that?
yeah, yeah. Well, I actually found, I'm glad that you brought that up. I think that's our internal thoughts about that. Because
Hmm.
when you can tell a man your struggles, now he can be like, whoa, I can breathe. I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mark is struggling with that, and
Yeah.
he's Superman, right?
Yeah. But that moment of doing that, when you go to a cold lake, you try to get yourself to just, can I get in? I know once I get in, I'll be fine, but can I get in?
Yeah,
Well, taking that step as a man to kind of unveil yourself and be like, can I tell you what's really going on inside of me?
yeah.
That is the ultimate cold lake. That
Oh, yeah,
frankly,
that's
a
real.
lot of us will go about ankle deep and we're like, where's the concession stand?
Right. And this
Because
far,
there's no threats. The concession stand doesn't have threats, it has comfort.
yeah, that's real.
But I believe that once a man takes that step into the cold lake, that awkwardness of, can I tell you what's really going on inside
Yeah,
of me? That man can learn to swim.
yeah.
And that's a powerful moment.
Man, that's good, bro. It reminds me of a quote that says, "The brave may not live forever, but the cautious won't live at all." Right?
Mm.
So there has to be a level of risk that we take. And one of the things I found interesting is that you structured the book like a playbook, right?
Mm.
So why did you take that approach? And what's the first play that any man needs to run?
You know, the way I structured the book was to be a conversation guide.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I think it's really hard for men for us to understand our life. And what you can't understand, it's very hard to do anything with.
mm,
A lot of men, we know how to talk about sports, we know how to talk about trucks, we know how to talk about hunting, so we can really dive into those topics. But the problem is, as men, we don't know how to talk about whatever's in here.
yeah,
We don't know how to talk about the confusions we have with our wife or with our kids or just our own personal hangups. We don't know how to talk about it. So we don't talk about it.
yeah,
And so the main way I laid out this book was to be a conversation guide to help men use sports as a metaphor to open up conversation and be able to simply be like, oh, So this is what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
I'm not such a bad man. I'm not so messed up. And so it's really the playbook that I laid out in the game is to help men have conversations that are powerful without being so awkward.
Yeah.
Because most men can't do awkward. Like if it's awkward, it's like I'm out.
Yeah.
And I don't think powerful conversations that change our lives, they do not need to be awkward. It doesn't have to feel like a therapy session, even.
Yeah.
It can
Yeah. I
feel
agree.
like dudes talking in a real way about our lives. So that's how the book was laid out.
Oh man, that's good. I love that. And I think, some people will not like the fact that, you're writing a book about sports for men as if that's some sort of a stereotype. But to me, that's the low-hanging fruit.
Hmm.
And when it comes to men, that's exactly what we need to get started. Doesn't need to be heavy, right?
Yeah.
Our CEO oftentimes talks about when men say, "Hey, I want to do better, I want to be better, I want to read my Bible more. Where do I begin?" Right? Most of them start with, "I'm going to read the Bible for a year," and they fall out within the first 5 or 6 weeks
Hmm.
because it's too much to handle. Right? So sports just makes it easy, and we've got to start with the easy thing. Especially when it comes to men, man. And I know
I
we
call
talked
it,
about. Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I would call it we need to start with
Yeah,
the powerful thing. And we get into some of this in the book where we talk about why is it hard for men to find the game? And oftentimes it's that we have the wrong mindset on what the game is. So for some men, when their life is messed up, and this book definitely has a faith-based component to it without a
yeah,
doubt. But oftentimes for men, it's like, all right, my life is messed up.
yeah,
I need to turn it over to God. And then they turn their life into a Bible reading competition or a prayer competition or how often can I go to church competition. And all those things are good. But that's like a football player who goes to the gym and works out and he watches what he eats, but he also gets into the game and he tackles and he runs and he plays. And so for a lot of men that come from a faith perspective, which I'm all about,
yeah,
I believe that the game is not about how much I can read the Bible. I believe the game is about how much the story of the Bible changes the story of my life and how I live every single day.
absolutely.
And it applies to every relationship. It certainly is all about our work. It's about all of our endeavors, not just, quote, the spiritual endeavors.
All right, that's good, man. So in the book, you had mentioned that purpose isn't found, but it's actually built. Man, break that down for us.
Yeah, purpose, I believe it's there again, one of the most simple characteristics of life, the thing that you simply, I don't know how anyone lives without purpose. I know what tends to happen is people who do not know their purpose well end up knowing their problems well.
No, absolutely.
And by default, if I don't have a purpose to pursue, I become pursued by my problems my whole life. And I'm trying to run from my problems
Yeah,
instead of running toward my purpose. In the work that we do with people, when it comes to purpose, we take people through an 8 week process called the Purpose Mastermind. And it's all about knowing our purpose, but it's really not that complex. It's like it's like removing all the clouds that formed around our life. And once those clouds are gone, to be able to look and be like, oh, this is who I'm made to be in this world. Because I think God's design for mankind is certainly to have a powerful purpose that moves our life, but we overcomplicate it to the point that we never know it.
yeah,
But purpose is actually very, very simple.
yeah. And what's interesting too, man? I think that some of us have been able to find purpose through pain.
Mm,
So unfortunately, um, I mean, I think about the book of, I'm not the book, but I'm sorry, I think about Joseph, right? When his brothers threw him in the pit, he was having his dreams. He was wearing this beautiful coat. He was the favored kid, right?
Hmm.
But in order for him to get to his purpose, he had to be thrown into the pit first.
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
had to be enslaved first. He had to go to jail first, right? He had to be accused first. And so sometimes our purpose is literally born through the pain, you know?
Brother, I honestly think that's the story of every human life.
Yeah.
I was just in a prison today talking to inmates, and we're talking about this specifically. I think the story of the prodigal son is the story of all of our lives. That at some point you end up in the pit.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you end up in that pit or pig pen, we oftentimes think that we have to fix our life before we can have a purpose. We get in that pig pen and it's like, well, as soon as I clean myself up, or as soon as I earn back all the money I wasted as
Right.
a prodigal, we try to fix our lives. But the bad news and the good news is we can't fix our lives. What we can do is surrender our lives.
That's it.
And that is when the prodigal son goes home with nothing. This is his step into the cold
Yeah.
lake. He comes home with nothing but the mess of his entire life, which is the hardest thing to do as a human, to just unveil oneself and say, here I am. I've lost it. I've spent it. I've wasted it. I've done it. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. But that's the place of redemption. And I'll tell you, I totally agree with you. The pain and mess of our life is where the formation of our purpose really comes to life if we're willing to face our mess.
Come on. Gotta face it.
We got to face it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me in my life, I learned because most of my life I would never face me. I wanted you to see over here what I could present to people. And I could present pretty well. I was raised in the church. I
Yeah.
knew how to present myself. It wasn't that I was a fraud. Like I was teaching at a Christian school. I wasn't a fraud. I just wasn't free.
Mm.
Like I wasn't willing to face the mess within me. And because my mess in my life, most of my life was food. Well, that's seen as an innocent thing. People don't tend to see that as bondage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If you're an alcoholic, you better sit on the back row. But if it's food you turn to, you can preach behind the pulpit.
Mm.
I used to be a pastor when I was younger, and there was a guy who came to our church who was an alcoholic. He came every now and then. I was never raised around alcohol. I've never, don't get me wrong, I'm not this really, you know, pure person, but I've never liked alcohol. I've barely tasted it. I've never been drunk. And at that time in my life, I'm like, I don't even know what alcoholism really is. I don't know how bad it is. I
Yeah.
just knew it was really bad, you know. And this guy would come to church and I would be like, I don't know what to say to that guy. But I would now,
Mm.
because now I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, I was that guy and he was me. The difference was he chose alcohol to numb the struggle of his life.
Yeah.
I chose food. But from a view, 40,000 foot view, it's the same human struggle that's happening,
Oh, yeah.
but culture looks at it differently. And so for me, my problem was never that I had a problem. My problem was that I always hid my problem.
Hmm.
And when I finally came out of hiding, I realized that all those years, I wasn't just hiding my problem, I was hiding my gift. And it's a perfect example of what you said that our purpose, it goes right through the pit of pain.
Mm.
It comes right out of the mud of our mess. And this is why I'm always so excited to tell people, like, what is it that happened in your life that you're so afraid of? What if what if instead of burying it your whole life, what if you just pull it out? And what if when you pull it out, dreams begin to come,
Hmm.
new vision? Like when you pull it out, you think it's the ugliest thing ever, but instead, when you pull it out, you find gifts that were laying dormant underneath that hiding place the whole time.
Wow, that's a word. That's a word, man. So let me ask you this. As you've kind of discovered your very own purpose through the pain and through the things that were hidden, what is one mindset shift that every man needs to make today, especially some that
Oh,
are hiding behind these problems and this pain?
there's a couple things I'm thinking of, but I think the main thing I want to say is I mentioned earlier that I think every man wants to be, in his own way, Superman.
Yeah,
But most men, we never learn what to do with kryptonite. When a man looks at his weaknesses, and I did this for so many years, it's so easy for us to see our weaknesses and say, I'm not a good man. I have this weakness.
yeah,
Instead, what we can do is look at weakness and realize it's kryptonite. And so a man can look at his weakness and instead of saying, oh, I'm a bad man, I have this weakness, what if instead he says, he looks at that weakness and he says, I got kryptonite. I must be Superman.
right.
And what if instead of his life constantly ruminating on his weakness, what if more and more he lets his heart and his life ruminate on his purpose,
Mm,
realizing, well, of course I have kryptonite. I always will. But I mean, scripture says God's strength is made perfect in our weakness.
amen.
But it's not the weakness we hide, it's the weakness we face. And I think what we try to do as men, it's so easy for us to think I have to hide my weakness and then stick my chest out and pretend I'm fine. And I think what the world is waiting for men to do is be honest about your weakness. And instead of sticking your chest out, stick your heart out and put your cape on,
Yeah,
representing your purpose. And don't live to fix yourself, live to serve people, live to make a difference. And that's what the game is. To stop trying to fix ourselves on the sidelines. You can't fix yourself on the sidelines to earn yourself a pathway back into the game. What we can all do as men is realize certainly the gospel has shown us all a pathway. All you got to do is surrender and fall on your face and surrender. And that action of falling on your face takes you from right behind the sidelines to falling into the game.
that's
And
it.
once you get into the game, the whole mindset shift together as teammates is how do we make a difference in the world? And so while we're in the game, we're honest about our kryptonite. But on the sidelines, we neglect the game while we try to remove the kryptonite, but it just doesn't work.
Yeah, wow. So, as I mentioned earlier, when we first jumped on, we probably get 10, anywhere from 12 to 15,000 downloads a month. So, there are men out there listening right now. Some of them are feeling numb, lost, um, purposeless. What would you, or what's one step that you can have them take today that is practical, for them to change their lives?
First of all, I want to say something to them, and then I want to give them a step. Last night here in this office, I was sitting in that chair behind me, and I was talking to a man that I just met last week. He's 29 years old.
Hmm.
And when I meet with men who are struggling, and this he's been suicidal. He's really been struggling for many years as a man. When I talk to men, the first thing I ask is not, what is your problem? I ask them things like, what is your purpose? I ask him questions like, who were you made to be? I asked him this question. I said, what do you want? And he paused and he looked at me with such depth. He looked at me and he said, I just want to feel like I'm okay.
Hmm.
And I think about many good men have humble hearts. We may portray different things outwardly. We might lift weights boldly. We might be a jokester, but inside of it all, many men have a good heart. But sometimes as a man, when you don't know your way, you just start feeling like there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's going to be lots of lies that come in from all kinds of places. You have this problem and that problem, and this man, when he looked at me, he said, I want to feel like I'm okay. And I told him something. I said, Cody, I want to tell you what's wrong with you. Right now, I want to tell you what's wrong with you. I said, Cody, nothing is wrong with you.
Hmm.
You've been shot up in this life, but you've been shot up by metaphorical, invisible bullets. If you were in a car accident and if you fell down stairs, there's real injuries that you would see and you would understand why there's pain. But in this world, there are invisible injuries that occur to a man, but he doesn't know how to recognize it or talk about it. And so he thinks there's something wrong with him but actually what happened is stuff happened in his life to him. He just never really knew it.
Hmm.
So I said, Cody, there's nothing wrong with you. And that's what I want to say to any man listening to this. Any man listening to this podcast is probably a man who wants something more from life, but he might also be thinking, there's something wrong with me. And I want to say to that man, the man that has the courage to listen to the Better Man podcast is a man who's digging for more. And I want to say to that man, there's probably nothing wrong with you, but stuff has happened to your life that you haven't understood, and it's left you thinking there's something wrong with you. And when a man feels like there's something wrong with him, he starts to tap into the Joker on the inside of him
Hmm.
instead of the Superman inside of him. So here's the practical action step. Any man, you just feel like you're lost. I want you to find one man that you know that you can trust. And I want you to call him and say, I want a conversation. And I simply want you to say to that man that you trust, can I just say, can I tell you a story? And I just want the action step is to just let your words start to come out of your mouth. Or maybe I should say, let words come out of your heart. Just say the story of the wreckage, like whether it's something you did or something that happened to you. Talk about how your heart feels. Like, what are you thinking? And let it be almost like vomiting.
Hmm.
It doesn't need to be pretty. It doesn't need to make sense. Matter of fact, don't try to make sense of it. Just say it. And then hopefully the person you talk to will be what I call the flusher.
Yeah.
And that is after you vomit your story, they just flush it down and begin to look at you and talk to you about your purpose.
That's good. That's good, man. One of the things you just reminded me of is an old statement that says, what's hidden can't be healed.
Mm,
And so if you keep it hidden, you can't be healed from it. And I think that's one of the things that that help to strengthen relationships between guys,
mm,
right? Is when they know that they can say, man, I'm hurting, man, I'm wounded, man, I'm broken. I need some help. And when they can pour
mm.
those things out to someone they trust, like you said, now we begin to get in the game. Uh,
Yeah.
Mark, this has been a phenomenal conversation, man. I don't think you just wrote a book, brother. This is a wake up call. So, so man, if you're listening Maybe you've been feeling stuck, your confidence chipped away by bad breaks, broken trust, or just the weight of life.
Mm.
Hear this loud and clear. You're not done.
No.
You're not done, man. There's still breath in your body. There's still a call on your life. There's still a game that has to be played.
Mm.
And these are things that I tell my sons often. You might be sitting on the sidelines right now. God didn't create you for the bench.
Mm.
The world needs your strength. They need your story and your surrender. That's the
Mm.
only way it's going to get out. So let's pick up this playbook. Get back in position. Trust that God still has a purpose with you and with your name on it. So, Mark, I just want to say thank you so much, man, for reminding us what's possible when men decide to stop, you know, mumbling
Fine.
and start showing up, bro.
Yeah.
You
Stop
know,
trying to fix yourself.
stop trying to fix yourself. But I want y'all to go grab this book in the game, share this episode with a brother who needs to hear it. Um, and Mark, before I close this out real quick, I was on my way to do that. Tell them where they can find the book or any of your resources.
Yeah, they can just go to Amazon and look Mark Delaney in the game and it will pop up. You can go to markdelaney.com and see more of the work that we do with purpose because in our work with people, it's really simple. Do you want to fix your problems or do you want to chase your purpose?
Come on,
And
man.
we say, know your purpose and chase it.
That's it, brother. Know your purpose and chase it. So, Better Man fam, until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and always keep becoming better men, one step at a time. Mark, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.